Good day and welcome to yet another edition of Offside Musings. On behalf of my co-host, Emeka Onyawa, it's my delight to welcome you today. In today's episode, we're going to be looking at the Nigerian elite, what we call the tragedy of an elite that is so consumed with its material enrichment without the requisite vision, without the requisite hard work. So we're going to be telling a bunch of stories that illustrate the way in which Nigeria has been particularly unfortunate in the kinds of people who have run the country. The whole idea then is to propose, especially to young people, that as we approach 2023, they must be particularly discerning in the choices they make. They must decide, for one, not to sit at home, but to participate at every level of the political process, both as candidates, as well as voters, as well as people who defend the integrity of the votes that they cast. So Nigeria has been ruined, has been put in a terrible place by those who have presumed to be its leaders, but who have rather served themselves. So today we're going to be telling a bunch of stories to illustrate the particular absence of vision and the consequences of that for Nigeria. Welcome.
All right. The Nigerian elites.
That's the subject, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it's a perennial kind of subject. And I guess part of what got us into this subject was you and I watching a music video. And in this music video, which is very, very popular in Nigeria at the time.
At
this time. So there's this very popular musician. I don't think we need to name.
No, we don't need to name.
Because we really don't want to make things too personal.
It's just the flavor of the
because it's representative of a trend. So there's this musician, and the music is all about the display of spectacular wealth and great buildings and amazing cars and so on, and then a bunch of men and women, showing off and gloating and basking. And I saw it, and artistically, there is a part of it that is appealing because that's what music does, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
That's what film does. But on second thought, I felt that this was rather disturbing because we are looking at a country that is broken in every respect, where we don't have even something as basic as roads. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And yet there are these amazing mansions, right? And incredible cars that feature in this music video. And I was saying that part of what disturbs me when I see this kind of display is that it's so symptomatic of the kind of elite that we have in Nigeria, because this video clearly was not shot in Nigeria. There's no place in Nigeria like this, okay? There's no place in Nigeria that has the roads in the movie and in the video. So ultimately, people have to go to Dubai, have to come to the United States, go to South Africa even, to find locations that are appealing like this. And so I'm saying that the message, unfortunately, that a lot of young, impressionable Nigerians have is that this is the way to live. This is how to live a full life. And yet, because the Nigerian space does not provide that kind of space, ultimately what happens is that our young men don't have the connection don't have a sense that hard work and success are are inextricably tied to material success. Okay? So all they see is the end result, all the cars and all the glitter. They don't see what gets you there. And they don't see that the litter that is all around them, the dearth, the dysfunction, the bad roads, the broken systems produce only failure. And so and I was talking about Fela as a musician.
Yeah, I was going to say so. I was going to let you. You seem really pained. But the thing is this, right? And I was telling you, look, it's hard to have that bridge between what is appealing to people and what makes sense. It's like a bridge. It's like being an interesting professor, which you are.
Thank you. Yeah.
Like being an interesting professor sometimes, it's hard to have that bridge, So the easiest part is when talented people end up in situations, you end up trying to dumb down what you can do to be more appealing. Like it's like the thing of going viral. I could call it today. It's a lot easier to go viral in certain ways. Or I was actually looking at something from this lady's blog, for instance, Linda Ikeji, for instance. I don't know what her deep down this thing is, but I do remember that she did study English, and she is very good she's above Nigerian average and pretty good at writing. And that was her key. That was the key for her. She ends up just wanting to write about having to. I won't even say, if you read the beginning of her story, having to write about salacious things and so on and so forth. Not to get into her, but the thing about it is creating that bridge. And I was asking you, like, okay, so how do you come across? How do you define or take a look at in terms of what kind? How do you want people to be able to produce successful music and be successful and feed themselves at the same time, have stuff that has meaningful content? Sure. And you were saying something which...
Yeah, so I was telling you that two of my all-time favorite contemporary musicians were Fela Anikulapo Kuti and Bob Marley. Okay, so at the level of music, these two men were at the highest levels. Okay, Fela's music is enduring, which means that it's important. Okay, that's why it's lasting. All right, so is Bob Marley's. Okay, but these two musicians did not simply get us to dance, to get up and dance, right? They at the level of art, they were very entrancing. I tell people that art, broadly speaking, whether it's music or poetry, good poetry, or fiction, art or movie, art is an art of seduction. Okay, so you're seduced by art. That's why you respond to it in a very emotional, visceral way. But what separates, I would say, flimsy art from enduring art is that enduring art also engages you at the level of your mind. So it just doesn't pull your heartstrings. It just doesn't make you feel happy or make you feel lightheaded. It engages you, so it stays with you. It captures your imagination, and it enables you to think, to soar, and to imagine a different kind of society. So I think that that's where somebody like Fela and somebody like Bob Marley, and there are a bunch of other musicians, okay? But okay.
Which other ones would you put forth?
Well,
because Fela and Bob Marley sound like easy ones to come up with.
If you look on the global stage, okay, somebody like Miriam Makeba was very important. Lady Smith, Mombasa, again, were very, very important. Sonny Okosun in Nigeria, at one point was extremely popular, and I think if you go to Rex Lawson, if you go to Osadebe, at one point was very, very philosophical. Mike Ejeagha is actually an underrated musician who is a poet in music and whose music, I think, continues to speak to me and to speak to a lot of people in very profound ways, okay? And they don't sacrifice the music. They don't sacrifice the art. What they do is that they bring something else into the art. So it's like literature, right? So there's something called, commercial fiction, right? Thrillers where it's all about, this guy, meets a woman in a party and, takes her and charms her up and, they have an affair and it turns out that the guy has a family and or the woman has a husband or something. So it titillates you at the level, at a certain level. But good literary arts, like if you read Things Fall Apart, right? Mm-hmm. You read Things Fall Apart and it brings you to wrestle with a lot of moral questions, okay? What is the relationship between an individual and his community, okay? What does it mean to be a strong man, for example, right? What does it mean to want to stand apart from your community? What does it mean? What's the proper response when an external alien force intrudes into your space and wants to hijack that space and to lord it over you? What's the appropriate response, right? So good art entertains you. Entertainment is essential, is basic. But beyond entertaining you, it ennobles you, as it were, okay? It invites you to rise, okay? It changes you, So if you read a good novel, if you listen to good music, it's as if at the end of the music, yes, you've stopped dancing, but the music stays with you because there is something about what it has brought you to confront that stays with you, right? So Fela's music, okay, when he talks about authority stealing, it's an unmasking of the Nigerian elite, okay? Because, what we have in Nigeria is that, people get into public office, they serve themselves, essentially. So they come out of public office and they have not left any positive imprint, okay? But then they leave office with tons of money and they build mansions and they buy, mansions abroad and so on. And somehow too many of our people find such individuals interesting. Yeah. Fela tells you these are simply rogues. Fela unmasks idiots so that you see. Let me tell you a story. I'm not, don't quote me on this, but I'm going on record. But a friend of mine told me that the late Ken Saro-Wiwa, either in conversation or in one of his books, I haven't seen that book myself, but so it's either Ken Saro-Wiwa or somebody at least told me, ascribed it to Ken Saro-Wiwa. That Ken Saro-Wiwa said that the world was indeed becoming a global village. And he said, but that there was a risk that the Nigerians in the world were turning into the village idiots.
Yeah, okay. And you were. I don't know if you're continuing with that story. But.
Yeah. So there are several stories that illustrate that.
Because first you were sounding like somebody who is clearly married to an art professor.
So there are for me several stories that illustrate this, right? So years ago, I visited the Philippines.
Yeah.
Okay. And I had my brother-in-law who was an executive of a company there. and I needed to do some business in an office there. So his driver took me. And as we went back home to my brother-in-law's home, we were driving down this amazing stretch of highway in the city, Manila, okay? And 3-lane road. On one side, 3-lane road on the other side. And this is, I've not even encountered a road that's beautiful in America. So I remarked to the driver, I said, wow, this is a really, really beautiful, magnificent highway. And he said to me, we call it Corruption Road. I said, why? He said, oh, that when the government was building the road, that a lot of money, the public perception is that a lot of money was stolen in the construction of this road. And I didn't tell the guy, but a thought was going through my head at the time. I said, well, the difference between the Philippines and Nigeria is that in the Philippines, perhaps they stole a lot of money and they produced a road that is really breathtaking in its just in its beauty, okay? But in Nigeria, they will steal even more money than I'm sure the Filipinos stole, and yet they will not produce anything.
Yeah.
And, if people doubt that this is true, consider the case of former President Olusegun Obasanjo. All right? So when Olusegun Obasanjo was president in 2000, the year 2000, he promised Nigerians that he was guaranteeing that by the end of 2001, they will have regular, uninterrupted power supply. And he set up a panel headed by Lee Elimoke, who subsequently became governor, to effectuate that promise.
Yeah.
And several times, Obasanjo was asked in an interview, do you still stand by your promise? He said, yes, my honor. By December 31st, Nigerians will begin to enjoy regular, uninterrupted power supply. In the end, the task force spent something like $16 billion on that project. I happened to be in Nigeria then. I was teaching as a Fulbright scholar at the University of Lagos. I kept telling my father-in-law, I said, this is not going to happen. My father-in-law said, oh, okay, you always doubt. He said, oh, Obasanjo has said on his honor. I said, all you need to do is, how much honor does this man have? That's all you have to ask. Well, on December 31, I was in Nigeria, and there was almost an all-nation blackout. It was almost as if Obasanjo wanted to tell Nigerians, I've taken you guys for fools, okay? So you believed me. So this is a late April Fool's joke on Nigerians. And so subsequently, after Obasanjo left office, members of the House of Reps under Yaradua began to probe this expenditure in the power sector. Oh, by the way, before I get there.
Yeah.
So, so at one point, toward the end of 2001, Lee Elimoke announced that the commission, the task they were given, is to generate a certain number of megawatts of power.
Yeah.
So Obasanjo did one of his presidential chats, and the interviewer said to him, is it this task force, is it that they are to produce megawatts, or are they to guarantee regular uninterrupted power? Obasanjo came out and said it's going to be regular uninterrupted power beginning the end of 2001. So here comes the end of 2001. It was as if symbolically all over the country the power situation was terrible. And what did Obasanjo do? He said, hurrah, we've broken the world record in going from a certain number of megawatts to 4,000. So we produced 4,000 megawatts. We've broken the world record. Of course, you couldn't see 4,000 megawatts. Obasanjo simply said that the task force had generated 4,000 megawatts. Okay? So Nigerians were saying, but when are we going to see an improvement in power? And he said, oh, we now need to invest more in distribution. So this power, these megawatts are sitting there waiting for the infrastructure. And you think, okay, you think about it. How do you work on generating power which you cannot distribute? Okay, so it takes a stupid, foolish, idiotic, unthinking set of elite, who are perhaps too busy, eating bwegiri and so on, to think through a problem. But of course, the task was not, in fact, I'll tell you, if you remind me, I'll tell you of Shoyinka's joke on that. Okay? And so Obasanjo declared that this committee had broken the world record in generating a certain number of megawatts. And of course, Lee Elimoke was then rewarded with, and his committee were rewarded with national honors. They were put on the national honor list. And then ultimately, Lee Elimoke became governor, as if he had distinguished himself in public service, when the truth was he had failed. Okay? Now, so the investigation by the members of the National Assembly found that there were power projects, alleged power projects, which the Obasanjo administration had written in the books as having been completed and commissioned. And members of this investigation committee of the House of Reps went to the sites and saw that not even a grain of sand had been moved. Okay? So it's a kind of thing, and the companies have been paid in full, including local and foreign companies. Okay? And yet, Obasanjo goes around Nigeria every day and people call him Baba. Baba has said Atiku shouldn't be president, or it should be this person. And why do we take this man seriously? Do you understand? But we do. Okay? Exactly. And so that's the kind of elite we have, so that in the Philippines, they produce a spectacular road, but the ordinary citizen still says, okay, the road is good, but we're going to call it corruption road because too much money was stolen on this. In Nigeria, they vote the money, they spend the money, they have nothing to show for it, but they give themselves, as Obasanjo did, declared himself leader or founder of modern Nigeria. Yeah,
we're going to talk about a whole bunch of these stories. It's absolutely, I mean, the whole topic is looking at the Nigerian elites, how somebody could literally, I've been to a number of countries in the world. Nigeria is one place where everybody, first thing, this is the common joke, where the first thing you do when you want to build a house or anything is you gotta build a fence as possible.
Yeah.
And it shows you just, and it's not, we're going to talk about the story of.
I'm talking about that. Yes. Let's talk about that for a minute. So, so I've been to the Philippines 3 times, and not just in Manila, I've been to different parts of the Philippines. And this is a country which is like Nigeria in some respects, but unlike Nigeria in many respects. Filipino politicians, of course, we know the story of was the first lady who was
Imelda Marcos.
Yes, I actually met Imelda Marcos. Yes. I met Imelda Marcos at this beautiful place called the Farm at San Benito.
Wow.
So it's a health farm. It's a health facility. Sort of nestled on the foot of a mountain, great verdant greenery, and many This was set up by a German man married to a Filipino woman, and we met the man, the founder of this health facility. So he said he'd been diagnosed with cancer and given a few months to live, but he met somebody who talked to him about changing his diet, going raw, eating raw food and so on and so forth. It's amazing what they can do with raw things, right? And it'd been like 15 years and he hadn't died. So he set up this, the farm. So you can Google it, the farm at San Benito, Benito. San is S-A-N. So one day we were there, and Imelda Marcos was there with a huge entourage. Hollywood stars will come there. They have a gourmet restaurant that serves raw cuisine. Amazing. Anyway, that's a different story. But in the Philippines, they love big cars, extravagant cars, like there are Rolls Royces, there are Bentleys, and so on. They love their big mansions.
Yep.
So the kinds of tastes that the wealthy in Nigeria also like. But here's the difference. Because they have their Rolls Royces, because they have their Bentleys, the elite in the Philippines ensure that the roads are great. So, so we drove, to Tagaytay. We drove to other parts of the Philippines, and as far as you drove, the roads were excellent. They were motorable. Okay, no potholes, nothing. All right, the power was regular. So I talked to my brother-in-law then. I said, so you guys don't have power failure. He said, my brother-in-law spent like 11 years in the Philippines.
Wow.
So he said their first year when they were there, within like 6 months, there were 2 power outages. 2 in 6 months. The government fired the man who ran the power corporation, and since then, not one. So again, you see a country that holds people accountable, right?
Yep.
Have you ever heard of a Nigerian, resigning from public office because, under his leadership, there was failure of a monumental nature? No. Nigerians will tell you, it's somebody else's fault. When it comes to the bribes, I will take it. When it comes to all the privileges, the perks of the office, I'll take it. When there is the work is not done, it's somebody else's fault. Nigerians are allergic to accepting responsibility. So that's one thing. So you have great houses, but a lot of them don't have walls. They have, hedges, so that you can see the house. You can see the beauty of the house.
Yep.
Let me tell you a story about a young South African. I'm sure I've told the story before.
Which one is this?
The young South African woman who came to visit her boyfriend, Nigerian boyfriend. Have I told you?
Oh, no, tell me this. What's
okay. So there's this friend of mine, he lives in VI, actually. So those of you who are not Nigerian, Victoria Island is one of the upscale areas. Yeah, supposed upscale areas in Nigeria. Used to be beautiful.
Yes.
In the 70s and early 80s, Victoria Island used to be beautiful. But now it's become an eyesore in a lot of ways. It has multi-million-dollar homes, okay? But, open gutters, terrible roads and so on, clogged up streets. So this Nigerian guy had this South African girlfriend, and he'd visited her several times in South Africa, and she's driving him around to see beautiful parts of Johannesburg and so on. And then she came for the first time to Nigeria. So this guy picked her up. The day after she arrived, he took her around VI, then took her to Ikoyi. And at one point they were driving, and the woman said, "Okay, you've shown me where poor Nigerians live. I'd like to go and see where the wealthy Nigerians live." And this guy said, this is it. Didn't you see the massive buildings? But this woman just couldn't believe, was shocked that where wealthy Nigerians lived, so the guy said that at one point they passed in front of a massive multi-million-dollar house. Here was an open gutter that was stagnant, rank, brackish, and there was a dog that had been knocked down maybe by a car, and the dog was bloated, so about to just burst. Okay? That's where millionaires and billionaires live in Nigeria.
Absolutely.
Okay?
Crazy,
and with absolutely no shame. So when I see our governors, bring in visiting Americans or visiting Europeans or visiting Africans to their states, I feel shame on their behalf, okay? Because as I've told everybody, check this out. The way you are approaching, if you're on a highway in Nigeria, the way you are approaching a big city or even a big town is that on the edge of that town or city, you'll find where in other countries you'll find statues and beautiful, flowers and so on. In Nigeria, what you're going to find is a huge mini mountain of rubbish that is they set it on fire, so it's releasing its toxic, reek into the air.
Yeah, I'm going to give two stories on two. Yep, man, that was a good one. Because I was actually watching this week when, not to this thing. Well, last week, recently, just put it that way. Two of the biggest musicians in Nigeria, Burna Boy, had a car crash in his I don't know, I've forgotten what car it was. Maybe a Lamborghini. Don't quote me. Then also I saw Davido invite international, very similar to the story you're telling, international reality TV celebrities. They came in and they were driving in his Porsche, I think. And I went on one of these forums and we were talking, and somebody's like, yeah, the whole of everything, just essentially what you're saying is just one bridge they show, the bridge from Ikoyi to this thing. Yeah. There's just one this, it's just one that. There's the same small circle via Ikoyi, Lekki phase 1, and then that's it. All right, cool.
Oh my God.
Yeah, and you're talking. You were talking about your. We're talking about your friend who it's and the whole point is to tie it into these elites. Even though Burna Boy and Co are not elites, these people, political office holders, they steal all this money. In some cases, in a lot of cases, they have houses in Nigeria. In most cases, they do have houses in Nigeria, but they prefer to go somewhere overseas, Ghana even. They go there, they stay there, they go to Dubai. And, you look at them, you were talking about a couple of stories about political office holders, some, this thing, building his house and all that. And it's just the mindset is what, that story is going to. Yeah.
Before I get to that one, there is this, because we have a strange fascination with extremely expensive cars, all right? Which is strange given the quality of our roads, the ghastly quality of our roads. And it reminds me of some years ago, about 15 years ago or so, I happened to be in Nigeria, in my hometown, and I was going to Nnewi to see an old high school, secondary school friend of my late uncle. And the stretch of road from my hometown to Nnewi then was really, really bad. But I got to a point where there was a convoy of about 8 or 9 Rolls Royces, okay, on this terrible road. So here we were moving slowly, getting into a gully, then coming up, and in the opposite direction was this convoy. And so the Rolls Royces would dip into a pothole, come up. I'm sure that their bottom will scratch against, the tar, the asphalt. And then they will get into another pothole. And, so it was this strange dance of Rolls Royces, dipping and coming up and dipping again into potholes. And I was wondering if the manufacturers of Rolls Royce knew what the kind of suffering that their car was subjected to in Nigeria, on Nigerian roads, I think they will place a moratorium and say, we're not going to sell in Nigeria until they fix their roads, But what it says again is an absence of shame. Because what you see right there, if you have a Rolls Royce in Nigeria, if you can afford one, even if you are not a politician, even if you are never been a governor, never been a member of the House of Reps or the Senate or whatever, you definitely have the capacity, the political capacity to reach those in those offices. You can actually persuade them to build good roads. Again, I make this point again and again because Nigerians have come to the point, because of our sense of lowered expectations, we've come to the point where we consider the building of roads an achievement by a governor or a president. So I've told the story, right?
Mm-hmm.
Of being in London, being interviewed on Ben television some years ago. And Jonathan was then the president. And I was talking about how, Jonathan had failed. It was a disaster, So people, and I was making that point. And it was a call-in show. And one of the guys who called in said, you have to be objective. Jonathan is achieving a lot. I said, what has he achieved? And this fellow told me, he's building some roads. Jonathan was building some roads, he said. So I said to him, you live in the UK. Have you ever heard the mayor of London or the prime minister of Britain say that their achievement is that they are building roads? And so this caller said to me, you can't compare a Nigerian leader with British leaders. Again, inferiority complex. Mm-hmm. So I told him, I said the Nigerian president gets paid more than the British prime minister. Okay, Nigerian senators and members of the House get paid more than the British prime minister. So why do we allow such monies going to our politicians? But then we say, okay, like small puppies, if they build substandard roads, we're going to clap for them. Yeah. Okay. So, but this is somebody in the UK, again, speaking about the quality of our our enlightenment. The fact that again in Nigeria, this whole thing that building roads. But to get back to this, right? Mm-hmm. If if you love all these expensive, what they call exotic cars in Nigeria, which, they don't know the meaning of exotic. So any car that is expensive, the Nigerians call it exotic.
Yes.
But so you buy all these quote unquote exotic cars, mm-hmm. and then you put them on roads that look like roads look in Nigeria. So which takes me to the point. And by the way, so the point is that a lot of those who are responsible for the state of the roads are the elite, and they themselves buy all these expensive cars.
So
right?
There's the one that leads the way is one former senator. I think he's a former senator now, and
yes.
Everybody knows him.
Yes,
Dino Malaya.
Yes. and before Dino Malaya, from around his area was, General Abdul Salami Adisa, who died in
a car crash. Yeah.
In a car crash, right? So Abdul Salami Adisa was a military officer, and at one point was the Minister for Works.
Yep.
So he was in charge of road construction in Nigeria. Obviously, pocketed a lot of the money instead of working on roads. So after he left office, he started junketing all over the place, saying that those of them who owned Nigeria had decided that Babangida was going to come back after Obasanjo was president. Mm-hmm. And, in interviews, he would say, yeah, we're the stakeholders. We have decided, it's like the votes of other Nigerians did not matter. We have stolen enough money. We decide what goes on in this country. And so on one occasion, he was coming from one of those political meetings to basically orchestrate Babangida's succeeding of Obasanjo. And his driver was speeding down a highway, which was a federal highway, which he himself as minister could have fixed. And here was a massive gully in the center of the road. In the other direction was a truck. So the driver swung and the car began to somersault. This man was massively injured. Now, as a member of the supreme military, the leading military council at the time, mm-hmm. Again, he could have come up with a policy that built good hospitals in Nigeria. No, he didn't. So there were no hospitals in Nigeria that could treat him. He had to be airlifted to England. Shortly after he arrived, or by the time he arrived, he died. Okay? So our elite, so what I tell people is that our elite is so disastrous in their thinking that if the effect of their disastrous leadership was simply on other Nigerians, it would be bad enough. But they're actually a self-defeating, self-deserving kind of elite. Okay? You and I was telling you the story of a friend of mine. Again, years ago, I happened to be in Lagos, and this friend of mine said, let me go show you where he just bought land in Aja, which mm-hmm. is past Lekki, and he was building his house at the time. So he said, let's go see it. And it was in the rainy season. So as we turned off the main Lekki highway, turned left to start going to the site of his building, and here was a massive flooded area with a pool of water. Mm. And I looked at it and I said, this pool of water is so deep, you shouldn't put your car in it. The guy laughed at me. He said, oh, you have seen nothing. So he plunged his car, a Volvo sedan, through it, and he came out on the other side. Mm. And indeed, we saw several more deeper pools. And it's as if cars sort of develop a particular muscle once they get to Nigeria, because in America, that car would not have survived the first lake that it swam through, right? But here was this car doing magic, wading through lake after lake after deeper lake. And so as we were driving, my friend pointed to the left and he said, the house over there belongs to a commissioner that he and I knew, a commissioner who worked then for Tinubu, who was the governor of Lagos State at the time. Yeah. And this commissioner was my colleague at a newspaper that I worked for before I came to America. So we were both on the editorial board. And my friend knew the commissioner. So I said to him, if this guy has a home there and is in Tinubu's administration, why don't you call him and tell him to persuade Tinubu to come tar the road? And he said, I called him already. He told me that the answer to the condition of the road, the flooded condition of the road, is to go get an SUV, or what they call Jeep in Nigeria. And I'm fond of telling this story because it's so symptomatic of a particular mindset in Nigeria, where again those we call the elite think about, how can I solve my own problem? I'm not going to fix the power problem in Nigeria. I'm going to steal enough money so I can buy 4 generators. And those generators, so if one breaks down, I'll find somebody to fix it, and another one will kick off. So I have provided for myself regular power, and sometimes they have taken from the resources that I should have provided regular power for everybody to get it for themselves.
Some of them are so noisy.
Yeah, I'm not. Which is again something, right? Let me tell you something.
Most of them are so noisy.
Okay, so in 2015, I went to Somaliland for the Hargeisa International Book Festival. Mm-hmm. Amazing story. Somaliland used to be British Somalia, which merged with Italy-run Somalia to become one independent Somalia. But as Siad Barre's government fell and Somalia went into its tailspin of destabilization, this area that used to be British Somalia renamed themselves Somaliland and declared themselves a sovereign nation. They are not recognized by the United Nations. They are not recognized by any nation in the world. Even so, the space, they have a police force, they maintain services, okay? Mm-hmm. And they've been running one of the most vibrant literary festivals in Africa for years now, okay? So in 2015, they invited me to come. And I got there, and I was in a hotel. This is desert, mostly. Water was running. There was uninterrupted power in the hotel. So I was curious.
In the scary Somaliland.
Yeah, Somaliland. They declare themselves a nation, but nobody has recognized them as such. Okay? So I then spoke to the organizers, one of the organizers. I said, how are you able to solve the power problem here? So he said, it's simple. The government actually has given contracts to some investors. And so they give you an area, you buy a generator, and you supply power to this area, and then the people pay you the tariffs for the power.
Basic organization.
So, and it occurred to me that basically a lot of the generators that our wealthy Nigerians have in Ikoyi or VI can supply power to up to 10 streets or more.
Those things are noisy.
Okay? So, but one person owns, sometimes they have 5 of those machines, okay? Mm-hmm. Just one person. So you can imagine the waste. So in Somaliland, one person will be given a contract, okay, this number of streets, the person buys one generator and is able to supply power to all these people, right? And so you just think about it. You just think about it, right? It's like, again, Nigerians who have 20 cars. You go to their homes and they have bought 20 cars that cost from $60,000 to maybe $200,000. And they park the cars, okay, in their carports.
Yep.
And you say, who does that? It's like there's a quality of stupidity. You understand? Because, once you buy a car and the car is parked there, and of course, so what some of them do is they are going to visit their friend and they go in a convoy of 5 cars, So it's one person, he's going to see his friend and he says, let's go, driver, bring this car. We're going to go in 5 cars, right? Otherwise, if they didn't go in 5 cars, they go in 1, there are 19 other cars just sitting there. Okay? So,
and this is a very common thing.
It's a very common thing. It's extremely common. So it's like, a friend of mine who is a lawyer in the DC area said to me some years ago, he said, okay, Nigeria is a country where absurdity makes sense. So something that is absurd, which is self-evidently absurd, will somehow make sense. So Nigerians will be saying, I remember years ago somebody was telling me about this politician / businessman from the southeastern part of the country, who at one point was getting, during the military regime, was getting most of the road construction contracts in the southeast. And he will not do the roads, or he will do a substandard job. But every time he got a contract, he would go and buy one or two other Rolls Royces. And so somebody was praising him. Somebody said, the man is, he has like 11 Rolls Royces. And I said, don't you know that this is, again, like what perhaps, is ascribed to Kensaro, that this man is simply showing that he's a village idiot, I mean, so here you have a Warren Buffett or Ross Perot, who was a billionaire, okay? Warren Buffett, who is a billionaire, and they have one car and they drive themselves. So if Warren Buffett wants 2,000 cars, and 2,000 Rolls Royces, he'll park them. But why buy 200? Why buy two and park the car, which is depreciating in
it's
in
critical
value.
to note that even though you didn't define exotic and cars, some people buy exotic cars as collectible items
In this country.
which is fine.
Really exotic cars, though, right?
Yes, but these are
because
not really
exotic cars are old cars, that people drove maybe 100 years ago and so on. So,
but some of them are cars which people believe will increase in value.
Yes.
Some.
So small, limited
Very small
edition.
quantity.
Limited edition is like wristwatches, right?
Yes.
So there are some wristwatches that are limited edition. So if you buy them, they're going to hold their value and indeed increase their value. But if you go and buy a Mercedes today, 2 years later, Mercedes is going to produce a newer version of that. Nobody is going to want your own. In fact, that some people, almost everybody will accept if you give. But no. Actually, sometimes it's too expensive to maintain one. So it's not everybody who would accept. But the point is,
The value goes down, and then the value keeps going down.
The point
in
is,
Nigeria.
the point is, why do we have an elite, right, that is committed to a project of self-destruction? So that's really the summation of our conversation today.
In fact, there's a name they give those when you can't. Almost all these generators are very noisy. So there's the very smaller ones that people just, and everybody has to get one. So there's much smaller ones, and then the name they give it is "I better pass my neighbor."
Yeah, better pass my neighbor.
So it's almost like people want you to. There is a need in the Nigerian psyche, and maybe I won't say black psyche generally to make people believe that you're better than them.
Let me tell you why I started laughing. So years ago, I had a friend who went and bought a Mercedes 200, and then he went and got the tag for Mercedes 230 and replaced it and substituted where Mercedes 200 was at the back. So it speaks to that I better pass, my neighbor. So this whole idea, right, of let me project myself to be something that I'm not, which ultimately explains why our craze for titles.
Yep.
Somebody would say I have chieftaincy titles from all of Nigeria's 36 states, right? But not one title really constitutes an honor. You have had to pay cash for all of it.
Pretty much.
Okay? So I say to people, when you walk the streets as a big man in Nigeria, the poor people, if you have stolen your money, know that you have stolen their money. They have no respect for you. So when they bow, welcome sir, Ogasa, and they call you sub-chief, so and so. Why are they doing that? For money.
Yeah.
Okay. So the respect people have for you, the ostensible honor that people extend to you, is for cash. You got to pay for it. And if you go to the bank, say, and the bank security guy opens the door and say, welcome, sir. And you walk in and you finish, you walk out and you don't drop anything. The next time he sees you, he looks away like, I don't see anybody coming, right? So why do we then pursue these things which in the end constitute, are hollow.
It's like a thought I and I think we'll definitely do an adjunct episode on education as well, which we're going to do,
Absolutely.
which bleeds into this. But it was like a thought I was having on that, which it's like we have this certified thing, which you were talking about the last time. Like, people would come to your class and it'll be like, and it's just because, it's like I asked myself if we gave in a previous system with Kada conversation, if even when you have a certificate or a degree or something, and the university wakes up tomorrow and says, "Hey, we're revoking it," which they can. A lot of them are private. A lot of them are, they're they have the right to award and they have the right to revoke. So if they revoke it, what are you? Somebody,
what are you? Yes.
Somebody gave that statement. I was looking at it, and it's like, the one thing somebody can take from your head is not, which something my parents would say, my dad especially, but it's not something people live by. It's the level of intellect exposure, actual exposure, not just a certificate, not just
the knowledge you have. Nobody can take it from
somebody
you.
could wake up tomorrow and be like, I'm a lawyer, I have a law license. You can wake up tomorrow and be like, no, you're not.
Yeah, precisely. And this happened. Lawyers have been disbarred. I say, again, to make the point, right? So here I am. I have a PhD in English. I am a novelist. Okay. So I'm blessed with that skill. I've developed that skill, right? So if the university that I earned my PhD in woke up tomorrow and said, okay, we're withdrawing the PhD from you, right?
Which they can.
You give me a novel anytime or a poem, and I'll be able to analyze it for you because I still have that knowledge. In fact, in a lot of ways, I had that knowledge before I went in to do my PhD, right? And I set my mind on writing a novel. I have the technology for writing a novel. So, and there are lots and lots of novelists, amazing novelists, somebody like James Baldwin, who had little formal education and yet was a professor at some of the most revered universities in the world. Okay, I was just speaking with somebody 2 days ago, and the person was shocked that Wole Soyinka and Chinua Achebe did not have PhDs.
In fact, I
said both of them had, a first degree, bachelor's degree. Soyinka started his master's, abandoned it. But they are professors of professors. So professors study their works and listen to them speak. And, so these are men of culture. Ngugi wa Thiong'o, one of the greatest writers of our time, has a master's degree, and that's it.
It's like even when you go to Harvard, they study Tupac.
Yeah,
they study Nas.
Precisely.
They study the poetry of it.
And if Tupac were alive, Harvard would want to give him a chaired professorship.
It's like,
come talk about.
Yeah. I was watching for those that to go a little bit back. Tupac, this thing House Party played. There was a movie and the crew House Party and play Christopher Martin and Christopher Reed. Christopher Reed is the darker one. He eventually went broke at a point in time, all that stuff. But because of his artistry, his literary prowess, and all that, he was a visiting scholar in so many schools.
Absolutely.
And so the key point there is a lot of people come out and, it's like, okay, what are you without these things? And it seems like more and more it's first gaining certificates, which you're not like, you were talking about, you already had the talent and the distance before even going in. It's like somebody asked that question. I've forgotten where it was, where somebody, I don't think it was Reginald Lewis. For those that don't know, Reginald Lewis is another phenomenal. He has a book. He's departed us now, but he has a fantastic book about how he went to Harvard without even applying, on stuff like that. But I'm not sure if it's him, so don't quote me, but they asked one of them, they had asked him, like, what do you bring to Harvard? And he looks at them and he tells them, like, Harvard should be happy to have him, not the other way around. You know, and even people like Jidena rap about it, but his own circumstances are different. Like Harvard accepted him, but he decided to go to Stanford and all that. So it's like looking at somebody like, so what do you like? No, it's like, I'm giving you my presence in your school is a lot. So, you know, people we don't have that sense of personal development, intellectual development. It's all about, you meet a typical Nigerian and they are willing to tell you they, you know, and then they have this, they've been awarded honorary degrees and all that, and then they have 50 cars and 50 this, and then in front of your house.
Yes. In front of your house, you know, it's an open gutter, and of course, when you have all those honorary degrees and chieftaincy titles, you paid for it. Okay, you have paid for it. Meanwhile, here are people like Achebe and Ngugi wa Thiong'o who've been honored by universities around the world on the strength of their achievements. Somebody like Chimamanda Adichie, honored by universities around the world on the strength of her achievements. Okay, Achebe, you know, honored on the strength of his great literary genius. All right, and I think because all of this conversation is for me geared towards the absolutely imperative reorientation of society that we need. All right. We cannot continue down this disastrous path to, this. We can't continue to remain a peacock society, which is what I call us. You know, we're peacock. You know, when you show off cars that you ride around in
circles,
in terrible roads, or that are parked there in your carports, you're just being a peacock. Okay, when you wear designer suits and so on, and you have open gutters, you have no running water, you have to dredge boreholes and wells for your water. When you can't contemplate your kids going to schools in Nigeria, or yourself going to any hospital in Nigeria for routine or serious medical attention, and yet you strut about like you are an important person, you are simply peacock. Okay, there is little to you apart from those fine, colorful feathers that you flaunt.
When you feel like I better pass my neighbor, I can. You can't. It's like I know we're rounding up. It's like that statement Buhari made when they talked about his kids going to school in London.
Yeah.
So I can afford it.
Yeah, I can afford it.
If you can't afford it, stay in your lane.
Yeah. You know, and again, that's and you look at it. Buhari had that reputation as a poor man. Okay. That's part of what made him attractive to Nigerians, right? Oh, this man is poor. He finished as head of state. He was petroleum minister. You know, he has people said he had no home in his village, and that he had no. You know, it's all folk tales, right? And the truth is that if you earn the salary of a general, okay, I don't think you'll be able to send multiple children abroad. For school.
Not possible.
You know, if you're a permanent secretary in Nigeria, a governor, or a legislator, and all your kids are abroad, and you have homes abroad and so on. Yeah, they are extremely highly paid, but still it takes a lot.
Yeah.
To send kids abroad to school. And the question we also need to ask is, if it is true that we pay our governors and heads of states and so on so much that they can farm out all their kids to schools abroad, then how come we settle for the mediocrity of their service? Okay? How come we settle for the kinds of, that in one case they will build a school, a boarding school, and say there's no point building toilet. People can go into the bush to go to toilet. Okay, would they send their own children to schools in South Africa or in Britain or in America if that were the condition where their kids had to go to the back?
But that has been the case for a long time. Even people like Femi Fani-Kao, they went to middle school. A lot of people have been going to middle school in the UK
in
for
the
a
UK.
long time.
Yeah, they send their kids, you know. But it's all ultimately
they say Nigeria is a place they come to bury you when you die.
They bury you when you die, and the place where you steal the money in order to afford your life abroad, you know. So Achebe said in his little political treatise, The Trouble with Nigeria, that, you know, Nigerian leaders actually might as well be foreigners, you know. So they see Nigeria as just this space that they can, you know, act as parasites, you know, to suck the blood out of this place, and then they transmit that blood outside. You know, the resources of the country stolen from Nigerians are, you know, are put abroad. And so again, what does this all mean? 2023 is coming around. There are shameful so-called young men who are running around with spent visionless politicians buying forms for them, declaring them the solution, naming offices that these politicians have held, even though these politicians cannot point to any enduring way in which they have changed Nigeria in a positive direction. But young people should not let themselves be deceived by all of that razzmatazz. Okay, the choice should be clear. You have the opportunity to elect a set of leaders who are like you, who think like you, who understand that enjoyment of material gain that is decoupled from hard work and investment and achievement is a no-no, you know. So we hope that in our insights and stories that you've been enlarged. Thank you very much for joining us.
Yep, appreciate it.